the Vintage Cube. It is the Alpha Frog Vintage Cube version. Is that correct?
Yes,
All
the
right, tell me
pre-OTJ,
pre
pre-OTJ.
OTJ. Okay, so no hats. Hats are not allowed, right?
Yep.
So, all right, man, tell me. So, clearly at the CQC, like we want to have a vintage cube. So, and this one's awesome too. So, like, tell me, your journey of like building this out, getting the real cards, getting all pretty much all foiled fancy cards, right? But
Yeah.
like, tell me why. Tell me your journey of wanting to have a vintage cube.
So we had in this group we had the vintage cube for Moto that you had, and it was
Hmm.
proxied.
Yep.
And I have always just been a collector of miscellaneous cards that I pick up throughout the time, or I either want to play modern, or I want to play legacy, or I wanted to do vintage, or whatever I wanted to do. Granted, I never actually got to play vintage, but the point is, like, I just started collecting cards over time, and in our group, I played we played Moscow's Vintage Cube.
Hmm.
We've played our friend Fireball's Vintage Cube. We played the Moto one. And I was like, I want one too,
I want
because like,
mine. I want my vintage cube.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
well, I was like, I have all these cards that are sitting there that I don't want to get
Yeah,
rid of, but it
yeah.
would be a cool way to showcase them. And not only that is like when most of the people aren't always available to draft a Vintage Cube.
That's right.
So if I have one on hand, then I don't have to go out and reach. Like I don't have to reach out to you.
Hmm.
I don't have to reach out to anybody else in the community to use their cube. So I was like,
Yeah.
all right, I'm gonna make my own. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's spot on. That is perfect because you can always like if you're ever cubing, you can always do a vintage cube, right? Like no one's
yeah,
gonna say no to a vintage cube.
yeah.
It's a good default one to go to. So
Unless
here's
you're
a
Lucky Paper Radio.
yeah, that's right. That's true. And, yeah, this version has the powerful initiative creatures in there.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
yes, yes, yes.
So that's kind of leading into my next question of like, because like LSV got really big on like posting his cube videos every day, which then he started drafting the Alpha Cube, right? Which I'm assuming is
Mhm.
one of his buddies or in his Discord.
Oh yeah,
So,
yeah,
and that's kind of the question of like, sure, I mean, you can change, make things your vintage cube, but it's nice to have
yeah.
kind of a known vintage cube. So, what was your decision between like an Alpha vintage cube versus the MTGO one, or versus kind of like your own blend?
Yeah. So Moto removed Splinter Twin.
Okay. Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I hate
a,
them
pr-
for that now. you
a pretty
you
long
love the
time
twin.
ago,
Yeah.
and Twin was my favorite deck in Modern. Back before it got banned, and I wanted to find a vintage cube that had it. So my first initial thought was, oh hey, I can do a holiday party cube from anywhere between now and like 20, I guess what 23, I think. I don't
Yeah.
know exactly remember
Somewhere
when
around
it
there,
was
maybe.
removed, but I could have done something in that nature. But I saw that Alpha Frog still had it in his cube as a package, and this was the one that was on MTGO as a feature cube for a vintage. So
That's
I was
right.
like,
Yeah.
oh okay. I was like, all right, I watched LSV draft this thing a billion times, and I'm like, I really like this cube iteration, so I'm gonna try to replicate it myself. And I've always wanted to have like a set of duels and a Wheel of Fortune and all these expensive, really cool old cards for myself in case I just wanted to play Commander, which I'm slowly getting into it, but not as serious as other people.
Yeah.
But that was kind of my inspiration. It's like I really liked how the cube functioned. It got a lot of praise from the community.
Hmm.
Alpha Frog is just a well-known like cube theorist.
Hmm.
So I'm assuming with credibility will come a fun environment. So I went with that iteration because after OTJ came out, he dropped Splinter Twin. so,
All right. That's pretty funny then. Okay, that makes sense
so
then.
that's
Yeah,
why,
yeah.
yeah. So that's why I say pre OTJ.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of, it's like we're familiar with this cube, like some watching videos or having access to it, whether doing a Draftmancer or whatever. But like, you're right. We could transition if you want to get like new cards are coming out. Like it's your vintage cube, you could always
Yeah.
update it if you want. So cool, man. And one of the things though is like, sure, you know how I have the proxy vintage cube MTGO
Mm-hmm.
circa 2021. I forget now. I haven't updated in such a long time now.
I
Maybe it's
think
a
it's like
little newer.
2022. I think
2022,
like
yeah.
22.
But there is something magical about actually playing with the real cards. Like there is a difference of like, okay,
Mm,
this is a real cool duel, right? Like this is
yeah.
a Wheel of Fortune and so on. But I
Mm.
think you're working towards power. Is that the story?
That's the goal. There's always something that comes up. Car breaks.
Yeah,
Wife wants to go on a trip with me, which I also want to
yeah.
go on. Got to throw that out there.
Yeah, of course.
Just things of that. There's always something that comes up
Yeah,
that kind of like prolongs it. But
yeah,
eventually, that's going to be the last thing on the chopping
yeah.
block. So
I know. I just
I
want
can
to.
start getting that journey done.
Yeah, I just want to give you props on that because it does add more enjoyment to the experience of drafting it with real cards. Even though, how you know, I'm on the other side of the continuum of I'm like, I'll do everything proxy because I'm lazy to look through my bulk for a one set common, right? I'm like,
Yep.
I'll just proxy it. That'll take too much time versus you having like the coolest looking version. So I
Mhm.
appreciate it. It looks great. And I'm looking forward to having your vintage cube at CQC Spring 2025.
Right on.
Thanks, man.
Thanks.